Every great project, whether it's a simple app or a massive global platform, is built with a specific set of tools. But with literally thousands of options out there, trying to choose the right ones can feel, well, completely overwhelming. So let's break it all down. Today, we're creating your roadmap, a really clear guide to picking the perfect tech stack for every single stage of your project's journey.
This right here, this is the one question that every founder, every project lead, and every developer has to answer. And it's not just about what's new and trendy, it's about what actually works. Honestly, getting this right can be the difference between a super smooth launch and a frustrating failure. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Give you the framework to answer this question with total confidence. So the way we're going to tackle this is by following a project's natural life cycle. We'll kick things off with that first spark of an idea in the blueprint phase, then we'll move into actually building the thing, then we'll get it ready for liftoff at the launch pad. And finally, we'll cover the foundational pillars that, support the entire structure from start to finish. All right, let's jump in.
Okay, first up, phase 1, the blueprint. This is ground zero. This is where it all begins. Before a single line of code gets written, before anyone even thinks about a server, you've got to get that brilliant idea out of your head and turn it into something your team can actually see, understand, and, build on. See, the first thing you have to do is make your idea real, something tangible. And that's exactly what design and prototyping tools are for. They help you map out the user's entire journey, design the look and feel of the interface, and even create a clickable prototype that feels just like the finished product. It's all about getting everyone on the same page visually before you get to the really expensive part, the coding.
You can kind of think of these tools in order. First, you've got wireframing tools, things like Figma or Sketch. They help you build the basic skeleton of your application. Then you bring in the UI/UX design tools to add the skin, the colors, the fonts, the whole vibe. And finally, prototyping tools let you string all those screens together. This becomes your project's architectural plan, making sure everyone is building the exact same house.
All right, blueprint's done. Now for the fun part. It's time to move to phase 2, the build. This is where we take all those beautiful visual plans and actually forge them into a working, functional product.
So if you think of your developers as a construction crew, then these development tools, well, these are their power tools. They're digital hammers and nails. This is the heart of the engineering work, where all the features get coded, the logic gets built, and those abstract designs become real software. This is where the vision starts coming to life, pixel by pixel, function by function.
Now, choosing the right gear for your crew is absolutely vital. You'll need to pick a programming language. That's basically the core language your product's going to speak. Then you'll use frameworks, which are kind of like prefabricated structures that speed up development like crazy. And you'll use APIs to connect your product to other services, which saves you a ton of time since you don't have to build everything from scratch.
But here's the thing, a fantastic product with no place to live is really just a file on someone's laptop. And that's where infrastructure and hosting come in. This is the digital plot of land and the concrete foundation your project is built on. It's what determines how fast your app runs, how much traffic it can handle, and ultimately how reliable it is.
So, this is where you make some pretty big calls. You'll need to choose a cloud provider. The big names like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. These are basically massive, super powerful computers that you rent to run your application on. Then you'll pick a database solution to store all your data, and you'll figure out your server needs to make sure your project doesn't crash the second it gets popular. Getting this right from the start gives you a solid foundation to grow on.
Okay, so the product is built and it has a home. What's next? It's time for phase 3, the launch pad. This whole phase is about preparing for contact. We're shifting our focus from just building the product to getting it in front of the people who are actually going to use it.
I mean, before you go live, you've got to know it actually works, right? And then after you launch, you desperately need to understand what your users are doing. Testing and analytics tools are perfect for this. They act as your quality control to find all the bugs, and they become your project's eyes and ears to gather that crucial user data.
So what's in this toolkit? Well, you've got QA platforms to hunt down bugs before your users do. You'll want analytics tools so you can play detective and track user behavior. What features do they love? Where are they getting stuck? And you'll need customer feedback tools to open a direct line of communication with your users. Trust me, this data is pure gold for making smart improvements. So your product is polished, it's tested, you're gathering data, but that's still not enough. A great product that nobody knows about isn't going to go very far, is it?
You need to build a bridge to your audience, and that's where marketing and sales tools come in. They are absolutely essential for finding customers, telling them your story, and managing those relationships. So your outreach engine is powered by a few key things. First up, you've got CRM tools, customer relationship management. Think of it like a super-powered digital address book that tracks every single interaction you have. Then there's email marketing, which lets you talk directly to your audience. And of course, social media management tools to help you build a community and a real brand presence online. And that brings us to our final section. Now, I want you to think about these a little differently. These aren't really steps in a sequence. They're more like the foundational pillars that hold the entire thing up, running in the background from that very first sketch all the way to your millionth user. You know, no project is built by just one person in a vacuum, right? It's a team effort, and that team needs to be perfectly in sync. That's why collaboration and communication tools are so crucial. They're basically the central nervous system of the entire project. They make sure information flows freely and that everyone is always working from the same playbook. So you're probably asking, how do we keep everyone on the same page? Well, that's where things like Trello or Jira come in. They prevent total chaos by tracking all the tasks and progress. Then you have communication platforms like Slack or Teams that get rid of those endless email chains. And finally, documentation tools like Notion or Confluence create a single, reliable source of truth, so nobody's working off of old information. All right, our next pillar, this one is a biggie, and it is absolutely non-negotiable: security and compliance. In a world full of data breaches and privacy rules, protecting your users and your project isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a requirement. These tools are your digital locks and your legal shield. Look, the key here is you have to be proactive, not reactive. You need tools for data protection and encryption to make sure sensitive info is locked down tight. And you need compliance tools to ensure you're following the rules, like GDPR in Europe or HIPAA in healthcare. This isn't just about avoiding huge fines, it's about building trust with your users. Okay, our last pillar. And this one is a little different because it's not actually a tool you can download, it's a strategy. It's the one thing that governs your entire tech stack: your budget. How you decide to spend your money will directly impact every single tool choice you make. So when you're planning, you've got to ask yourself some tough questions. Like, what's the real total cost of all our tools combined? What are the trade-offs we're making if we go with a free version versus a paid one? And maybe most importantly, which tools are absolute must-haves and which ones are just nice-to-haves? This kind of thinking is so important for the long haul. And this really gets to the heart of a huge decision every single project faces: free versus paid. Look, free tools are fantastic for getting started with zero cash up front, but they almost always come with limits on features or your ability to scale. Paid tools, on the other hand, require that investment, but they unlock the full power and functionality you're gonna need as you grow. It's a strategic choice you have to make about where you are right now versus where you plan to be. So, here we are, right back where we started. But this time, it's not just some abstract question. It's a direct challenge to you. Using this 4-phase framework, take a hard look at your own project. Do you really have the right blueprint, the right construction crew, the right launch pad, and those solid foundational pillars to actually succeed? The right answer is out there.